Hey guys, Mango Recaps here. Today, I am back once again with yet another English crime thriller series, titled The Outlaws. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and please take care. As a disclaimer, this video includes my own analysis, commentary, and it's not a substitute of the full movie. Click the link below to watch, buy or rent the movie. First episode of Season 2 opens up tensely. We hear the heavy breathing of a girl coming from the back of the black car. They are taking her to a secret warehouse. With the mask on her, they reach the destination and take her inside. When her mask is off, it is Ronnie herself. Christian Taylor aka Malaki, is her kidnapper. He is also a drug lord for the Dean in Bristol. The question is, how does Ronnie end up getting kidnapped? The series cut us 72 hours earlier. Ronnie looked terrified and knocked on Ben's door, in seeking help from him. Well, it turns out that she had a heated argument with her parents over not going to Oxford, and in rage, she left her parents' house, and planned to stay out. Ben's sister, Esme, is not happy seeing her there. She even taunts them over their unsettled relationship. Is something going on between them? Hopefully, we will catch up later. Meanwhile, the team of content creators is at the door of Lady Gabriella, who is just over from her drug party with her friends. Her promo for Instagram goes horribly wrong, when one of her friend from last night's drug party walk behind the frame, completely ruining the perfect pitch. She is frustrated and ultimately smashes the product. At the factory, John, to provide some help at the work, he hires new employees. Later, Leslie and John's dad discuss about the company's financial problem. As a financial consultant, Leslie proposes a plan to work out the company situation, and suggests some major changes in their business. She informs his son, John had packed a deal with Graham Hilgard, which may be able to change the situation. But John's father is not convinced by the idea. Afterward, Frank is still tracking the money that Tommy has stashed somewhere in the house. Once he finds the money, Frank plans to make the money legit, and to do so, he asks Tommy to give him the money and promises to split the money as soon as he legitimates it. But Tommy doesn't trust Frank and is mad at him because he booked his ticket to Rio, abandoning his mother and sister again. Meanwhile, at the community payback, the seven are training to be PCSO, and once again Diane is in charge. The unwanted question freaks out Diane, and at the same time, Frank learns that teenagers hide their stuff in high school locker. He wants to take a chance and search at Tommy's locker. Diane uses a horrible event from her own life to warn Ben and Ronnie against getting into any more trouble. Shortly, Christian in a black Range Rover drives by, and threatens to kill them. Poor Greg taunts him, unknown about the situation. Ben informs Ronnie that, when he stole the line, he also some money and suspects Christian might be chasing that money. It turns out that some members have divided that money, and when Ronnie asks them to return the money, they says that they have already spent it. Thankfully, Frank has not spent it, but unfortunately his grandson, Tommy, has stolen his cut. Leslie also has no idea about the money, threats, and situation. She doesn't bother to know and instead invites them to a party at Ergo. Frank needs Tommy's locker key. He makes a copy of it. The following morning, he drops Tommy to school. As he expected, Frank finds the hidden money there in the locker. At the company, Leslie informs John that they have secured a deal with Hilgard, and in exchange, he is fired from the company. Oh my god, father fires son from his own company. What can be more heartbreaking than this? Ben visits Christian and offers to work together against Dean. And this time, Greg will be helping them legally. Christian hands Ben the captured phone, and later, Ben goes to one of Dean's places, the same place where he robbed his money, and offers the peace deal in return. He hands back the phone and agrees to mutually cease fire. Finally, with the GPS tracker down, Frank is a free man. Frank starts to play his game, and as a free man, he tells Tommy's mother that he wants to have a beer in a pub. When the family is watching TV, he grabs the money's bag, and leaves from there to convert the money into white. Tommy still has no idea about the locker infringement. Shortly, Ronnie's mother shows up at Ben's apartment and drops her cuddle partner, Mr. Snuggles, and asks her to come home and join Oxford. But she denies her request, and her mother sadly leaves from there. To cheer herself up, she decides to do clubbing and joins Gabriella at her party. It's her first time, and watching the vibes there, she is astounded and in shock. Let's catch up with Frank. As per his plan, he goes to the casino and changes laundering money with the chips and only plays 1 or 2 rounds, and returns to the counter to collect the check for the remaining chips. He repeats this process several times, until he exchanges all the money. Back at Ergo, Gabby spots Greg's co-worker, and Marie, whom Greg has a huge crush on her. She comes over there and asks Greg to take a picture with Gabby. Gabby, a clever ass, breaks the deal with and to go date with Greg, in exchange for selfie. As Gabby starts to get turned up with drugs and alcohol, she starts to buy a drink from strangers, believing that they are her friends. Greg is supposed to cut her unnecessary expenses and tells her that they are not her actual friends, they are moochers who are sucking at her teat. Gabby gets triggered by his words and instead blames him, saying he is sucking her teats and charging her £150 an hour, and partying with her. With this argument, she fires him. With the legitimate cash, Frank poops up at Ergo to celebrate before leaving for Rio, and once again abandoning the family. He meets up there with Ben, who also works as a bouncer at Ergo, and seeks help from him. He asks him to drop £1,000 on his daughter, and tip him for doing that. The team member meets up. They are dancing on the floor, but just at that time, the waitress comes up there and asks Gabby to pay the bills. All her credit cards are rejected. As expected, her father cancels them. Frank rescues her. She thanks him and says, "I wish you were my father, Frank." Who leaves their daughter high and dry at 1 in the morning. This struck hard on him. The world she just spelled was too heavy words. Probably he will change his mind and stick with the family. The fun night is over, as a gentleman drops Ronnie to her bed, while Frank drops his plan, and returns home and offers to pay his daughter's mortgage, and hands over check saying he won the money at a casino. Tommy is happy with his grandfather's decision. At Ben's place, sober Ronnie sneak into Ben's bed, and both make beautiful love. Their romance has just ended. Gangs from Dean kidnapped Ben and Ronnie. This was our opening scene of this episode. Well, it turns out that Christian is not a kidnapper. Instead, he is also kidnapped by the Dean's men. Gabby sees an evacuation notice on her house with the door lock changed. She has nowhere to go to spend the night. After giving several calls to her friends, she ultimately knocks on her door of Greg's. Greg let her in. Dean threatened to kill one of them, and the rest two of them will walk from there to manage his money, and nearly kills Ben by suffocating him. Ronnie saves him, saying she is an Oxford scholar and will find a way to find his money, though they have already spent it. Dean is impressed by her move and grants them 8 weeks' time. In the beginning, we see Christian, Ronnie, and Ben sitting around and figuring out the way to pay Dean. With no options left, Ronnie comes up with an idea to call the detective and inform her about Dean. As she is talking with the detective, all of them got a video message from Dean's men, revealing they are tracking their family, and if they snitch, they will kill them. Ronnie hung up the phone. In the meantime, Haynes receives a call from comms, informing her about the classified information of Dean, but she lacks the necessary security clearance. With the hope of stacking some leftover money, they ask Myrna, Frank, and John, and to their bad luck, they have all spent it all. But these three give them fake assurance that they will try to get the money. Back with the detective, Haynes is chastised by her boss for calling comms a dozen times. She has been red flagged for pestering Dean. Her boss also admits to knowing true about Dean. Actually, he has been tracking Dean and building cases for 2 years, and tells her that Scotland Yard is keeping tabs on Dean. He also reminds her, saying it is not easy to trap him, as he is part of a large international syndicate and is smart. Luckily, Haynes comes up with an intel, where Dean is running his business with a local food soldier called Christian Taylor at Bristol Line. She is confident enough that once they flip him, they will have all the answers. Her senior gave her the green light, and suggests to trade carefully. Meanwhile, John is confronted by his wife over leaving the party the other night. To keep himself up that his father fired him, and says that he is going to find a new job. Over at Greg's house, Gabby is still staying there and seeking help from him to find a job for her. However, her agents consider her toxic, and her rage, the main issues she is getting difficult to get hired. Over the frustrations, Gabby grabs the cocaine from him and plans to use it. Thankfully, Greg promises to find a job for her within 24 hours to keep her away from using cocaine again. Shortly, Myrna goes to BJC and tells Bo completely a fake story about the client, who had paid that money and is not happy with the services, and wants her money back. But Bo says she had already spent it. The same goes with Frank. When he asks for money with the daughter, she also had already paid off her mortgage. The three meet up with Ronnie and inform her that they could plunge the money back. Now, they have one last option left. They need to sell the drugs to pay Dean. However, Ben is against the idea because he is well aware of how drug killed his mother and denies selling it. But Ronnie promises to back out once they pay Dean and finally convinces him. A short time later, the group goes to Greg and asks them to rescue their sinking boat by laundering the money from drugs for them. However, he slithers out when Frank indicates blackmail, claiming Spencer has already blackmailed him. Afterward, Ben and Ronnie meet with Christian and ask him to take them in the line. But he rejects, pointing out the trust issues with them. Ronnie convinces Christian and he becomes ready to provide all information about the operation. He continues by saying, he uses one phone to take the orders from the client, and uses another phone to call the nearest runner for the delivery of the order. After that, they head out to meet with the runner along with John, as the business advisor. They meet with the runner and Christian takes the delivery payment from him. On the other side, Frank outsmarts Spencer by claiming to be an FBI agent, and convinces him to say Greg is a mole for the FBI, and smartly takes out the paperwork from his firm. After that, Frank shows everyone the document which he got from Spencer. This document contains information on converting all the money laundering money into legit. Greg is happy to see the document, but is not convinced to do the criminal act, money laundering again. But when Frank points out how Ronnie and Ben's life rely on it, he becomes ready to do it for their sake of them. The group sat to discuss the way to increase the flow of money and the potential market for it in the given time frame. After brainstorming, they agree to collect all the potential buyers' lists from Myrna's BJC, Ben's nightclub, Gabby's phone, and the college premises. First, Ronnie visits the college as a student. She meets with a senior who is going to organize a frat party. Hopefully, she will become able to get the potential buyer list from here. Before turning himself in, Christian hands over his Range Rover and drug business line to Ben. While at the college, the union leader hits on Ronnie, and at the same time, suspects something is awry. But Ronnie is unaware of his suspicions. To confirm it, the union leader goes to the security offer, and requests that he look up Ronnie's name on the student roster. In the meantime, she successfully manages to get the list of the student, and so does the others from their respective area. She narrowly escapes him. The whole crew gather up and discuss their names list, and screened out the potential buyers for their sale. Ronnie then gives a call to their first client. The call goes successfully. To go in the market, they need codeword, so they come up with codeword. The phones start to come, and they continue to talk with their possible clients. The Outlaws are in the business, while Haynes and her partner undertake their operation to apprehend Dean. The whole team geared up in selling the drugs. Each member is assigned a particular role in this operation. Frank is in charge of washing and laundering the money in the casino, and Myrna is head of drug dispatching. Ben and Ronnie find the big clients and crack the deal with them. The problem here is all the runners are kids, who might ultimately fall into drugs. The sale of drugs is beyond what they expected. To meet the demand for the drugs, Ronnie considers hiring extra employees. However, Ben was against this idea from the beginning, and again shows his disagreement, and worries about the children involved in trading drugs. When Ronnie says it's just for 4 weeks, and they can wash their hands off from selling drugs, Ben accepts to hire more to cut their workload. At the prison, Haynes meets with Christian and asks him about his drug line, and the person handling the line in his absence. But Ben simply ignores her. She even offers him to shift the jail, if he talks more about Dean. But Christian pretends to be unknown about it. Ben and Ronnie gather the kids who could deliver their drugs. One kid in the runners, Tyler, whom Ben doesn't trust and wants him out, but Ronnie wants him in, otherwise they will be outnumbered, and cannot fulfill the demand. Tyler is in, and let's hope there won't be any problem for them by this kid. Meanwhile, the group is at the community center and Ronnie receives the call from Spencer, who places an order. Greg informs John and Myrna that he has created up a shell firm in Britain named Laycock Logistics Services, to wire the money into the Dean's account. Because the inflow of drug money is high and the casino and Gabby's client are insufficient to wash the money. So he created an offshore company in Britain. A short time later, Gabby notices the group of people entering the property and finds that the government has sold the property to a telecommunication corporation, and soon they are going to demolish the place and build a mobile phone mast. She is devastated by the government's move and requests them to organize the protest, but all of them pull their hands out, showing some personal reason. Tyler is on the run to deliver the drug to Spencer. When he enters the inside room of Spencer, he notices the laptop and the expensive watch. Tyler quickly flashes his knife and robs Spencer. Ben was right, Tyler is not trustworthy. At BJC, when Myrna reaches there, Gabby is already there with her follower who is going to be part of the protest, to stop demolishing the property, and at the same time, they are going to raise the fund to buy the property. Myrna is astounded to see Greg there helping Gabby. But Greg has something in mind. When Myrna talks about it, he informs her that they are going to donate the drug money and mix it up with the donation and deposit it into the BJC account, ultimately transferring it to Laycock Logistical Services. Meanwhile, Spencer goes to the police station and reports the robbery. Unfortunately, Haynes is in charge and talks with Spencer. Spencer doesn't want a thief to be caught, he simply needs a clearance signature from the police, so that he could get the insurance amount. However, Haynes and her partner sense a possible link with the drug and take him to draw the sketch of Tyler. The clock is ticking and soon the whole gang is going to be in big problem, once Haynes gets her hand with Taylor. Shortly, Taylor is hanging out with his friend at the bank of the river, and shows the stolen watch. The police show up there. He quickly throws the watch in the river and runs, however, he is apprehended. Moving on, John is still struggling to find his job and again failed to impress the employer. He goes on an impassioned outburst, about not knowing what the corporates expect to look from him. Ronnie gets a call from Christian who tells her that she is screwed and also knowledge about Tyler. Despite Ben being enraged at Ronnie, suggests her to get a good lawyer. Ronnie then gives a call to Greg and highlights the situation. She asks him to get in the police cell, and stops him from talking. Gabby live stream and talks about her protest. Despite her wanting to save the community home, the people do not like her, they start to insult her, and call her a white supremacist. And when a reporter asks about it, she happens to be unknown about it. In the meantime, Greg takes Myrna with him to handle Tyler's case. During interrogation, Haynes finds that Tyler is 18 and threatens him with sentences, and proposes him an offer, where if he cooperates with her, she promises to help him. Greg and Myrna are in the police station and ask to meet with Tyler. But unfortunately, they get to know that Tyler is being interrogated by one of the officers. Just Tyler is about to speak, and Greg steps in and saves the situation. And also learn that Tyler had robbed Spencer, so he quickly informs Ronnie. After several rejections, John visits his father and requests him to take him back. He even becomes ready to work every hour. But his father rejects his offer. Simply his father wants him to learn something in his life, and upgrade his skills. Back with Gabby, Myrna returns to the community house and stands beside her. She apologizes for her insensitive remarks, and announces to step aside from the group and ongoing protest. But Myrna, as the founder of Bristol Justice Collective, refuses to accept her resignation. Moreover, she takes Gabby's side saying, Gabby is not a white supremacist. Ronnie and Ben step into Spencer's apartment and threaten him with his life, if he doesn't withdraw the complaint. Thankfully, Spencer withdraws the complaint and Tyler walks free. Haynes is frustrated because they were so close to Dean and regrets blowing the lead. However, her partner comes up with another lead, and shows her weird and expensive coffee deals booming in the community. Obviously, he is talking about coffee drugs that Ronnie and the group are running to pay Dean. At the community center, Gabby is happy to see the amount they have raised. As soon as Gabby leaves, Greg and Myrna mixed the drug money with the donation. Later that night, Ronnie gets a call and receives an order. She also informs that, as they pay Dean, they will start a food business, for which she will ask loan from her parents. Myrna is watching the news and finds that the government has decided to reverse the decision. One runner delivers the drug to this man. From distance, we can hear the shuddering sound of the camera. And that man handed over the delivery to Haynes and her partner. When they look at it, they found a flyer saying, "No to drugs," bewildering Haynes and her partner. We see Haynes and her partner briefing about the case, where her boss asks how Brook Hill is structured in the absence of Christian. To which Haynes's partner explains that the group is now recruiting young and highly mobile foot soldiers, and also informs him that they have got one kid's pictures. Boss gives the 3 days to find the lead by following that kid. Ronnie is at the prison and requests Christian to arrange more supply of drugs. Christian is quite impressed by her and promises to arrange the supply. At the local community center, an old woman warns Diane about recent activities. According to her, there was a lot of inflow and outflow of people, though the renovation work had already finished. In the meantime, Ronnie informs the team about the raw material, and asks Myrna and John to bring it tonight to the community center for cooking. John and Myrna give a look at Frank seeking some help, however he is unavailable as he has given word to her daughter, promising to meet his ex-wife. Meanwhile, Gabby's project to find Greg a partner is not going well. After clicking several photos, she builds Greg's profile in the dating apps, and still Greg needs date practice before going on a real date. Gabby then asks Diane to be Greg's trial partner, though Diane rejects initially but finally agrees to go on date with Greg. At some gas station parking space, Myrna and John meet the supplier of raw materials. They exchange the product. The initial phase of the operation is carried out successfully. When Frank meets his ex, he is perplexed to see her in a wheelchair. His daughter asks him to take her to the park. When he tries to make conversation with her, he finds that she cannot talk anymore. He leaves her there and begins to play with other elder people there in that community. His daughter finds out and both of them start to argue. In the meantime, his ex-wife starts to suffer from a medical condition. Ben and Ronnie are at Ronnie's house to have dinner with her parents, while Greg is out with Diane for his trial date. On the date, Diane guides Greg and Greg quickly learns her lead. Hopefully, he will learn something from her. Myrna and John are back at the community center. As her duty is done, Myrna leaves the community center and goes to the meeting with the network provider. When she reaches there, she finds that Claire is stuck in her presentation, and she intervenes and gives a wonderful speech, highlighting the importance of community, not the 5G network. Everyone is pleased by her speech and thus saves the community center. During dinner, both Ben and Ronnie ask loan from Ronnie's parent and promises to pay it back once they successfully run the restaurant. However, Ronnie's parent is not convinced at the moment, and tells them that they will think about it. At the community center, Christian teams are cooking the drugs. John is encouraged by Anastasia to give it a try. As soon as he hit the drugs, he is instantly high. After dinner, Ben and Ronnie are out to drop the package at the runner in Christian's black Range Rover. Hines and her partner are desperately waiting for a lead. After dropping at several points, Ronnie and Ben arrive at the place, where Hines is keeping her watch. Though they spot the car but couldn't see the person inside it. Believing the person inside the car might be running the line, they start to follow the car. Ronnie and Ben find that they are being followed by the police. At the same time, Diane and Greg win the quiz, and Diane is impressed by Greg's talent and becomes ready to have sexual intercourse with him. She receives a call from that old lady, who informs her about ongoing activities at the community center. Diane rushes to the car, however Greg intentionally drives the car slowly because he knows everything that is happening at the community center. Greg then texts Ronnie informing them to stop cooking. Ronnie tries to call John, but doesn't pick up the call as he is high already. Ronnie then gives a call to Myrna and asks her to go to the community center, and stops the cooking. In the meantime, Ben and Ronnie manage to dodge Hines. Ran then kisses Ben but Ben is shocked and stops her. He then asks if she is turned by the drug and the gang, as she was acting like the cartel lord. Ronnie believes that reaction might be the byproduct of her adrenaline pumping. Thankfully, Myrna reaches the community center just in time and quickly stops cooking, and manages hides out. Greg and Diane just arrive there. Greg is trying his best to distract Diane, and propose to her so that the cooking team can easily move out. He even kisses her but she sprays him with pepper spray in his eyes. After that she heads inside to further investigate. Thankfully Myrna and the team are already out. Ben and Ronnie burn the Christian Range Rover as the vehicle is flagged by the police. Frank gives an emotional speech to his ex-wife. He also explains the reason for not coming back to her. For him, facing her means facing himself, and which he never could do that. The guilt of missing the chance to say sorry to her, when it matters the most, is killing him. And correct his past mistakes and apologizes to her for his deed in the past. Finally, the team has collected the money to pay Dean. All are happy and from now they don't have to sell drugs anymore. At BJC, when Myrna arrives there, Claire shows her some suspicious transactions to Laycock's logistics supply. Obviously Myrna knows about it but pretends to be unknown about it. Myrna becomes aware of the situation and goes to meet Frank. She explains how much she is obsessed to be the leader at BJC, and could do anything to bring her down. They need to bring her down so that there won't be anyone looking into finance, and thus seeks his help. Frank then takes Myrna's BJC credit card and suggests sending Claire to a coffee run. At Greg's place, Diane explains every detail of the date to Greg. Gabby realizes that first, she needs to work on his postures and his walking style. Once his attires are good, then she will work on a behavioral approach. In the meantime, Gabby gets a call from Claire, who thanks her for the 100,000 donations. Gabby is in shock because she didn't donate that much money. In fact, right now, she even doesn't possess that much amount. Claire also warns Gabby that they could be the victim of money laundering. Gabby gives a suspicious look at Greg. Well, till this time, the team has kept her away from the whole operation because she is a big mouth, but now she knows about it. A short time later, in the coffee shop, Frank pretends to talk with Claire and successfully replaces Myrna's credit card with Claire's. Gabby meets with Spencer and tells him to look into her account. She then asks him if there is any large donation made to BJC or Laycock Logistical Services. Spencer then notifies her that the £10,000 are going to be donated today. She then asks him to freeze the donation. Later that night, Ben and Ronnie are again at Ronnie's parent house to have dinner. This time Ronnie's parents are positive about the restaurant business plan and become ready to provide financial and other aid to run the business successfully. However, their happy family time is ruined when Dean informed her that they are due to pay £10,000. This is the same amount that was meant to transfer into the Dean's account, as we know Gabby had frozen it. The whole team is at the community center. To cope with the situation, John tells them that they need to do pressure selling, where they have to call the client and threaten them to buy the drugs on the same day. Gabby is at a bar with Spencer, drinking and taking drugs. She even live streams and starts to talk about not trusting anyone, even a lawyer called Greg Dillard. This live stream happens to be watched by everyone, including Haynes and her partner. In the meantime, the whole group begins to call the clients and asks them to buy the drug. Greg comes to Ronnie and shows Gabby's live stream. She quickly asks him to find her and stop her. Back with Haynes, she remembers Greg and suspects some connection with the drugs. She then orders her partner to bring Gabby for interrogation. Frank is with his family at the fancy restaurant eating expensive food and pays with Claire's credit card. Thankfully, Greg manages to reach Gabby's location, however, is stopped by the bouncer. He even tries to reach her from the back door, but again is thrown out. Gabby leaves from there in a car. He follows Gabby's car, while Haynes' partner follows his. Greg then sees Gabby along with her friends entering the building. Greg quickly gets off from the car, and when he tries to enter the building, he is asked password that he doesn't know. After being denied to enter from the door, he climbs up through the pipes and sees Heinz's partner on the road. He quickly dives in from the window and search for Gabby. He also sees the officers inside the building desperately searching for him and Gabby. Greg finally finds Gabby and requests to talk with her in private. He does okay explaining the situation, but still Gabby feels that she is left out as all the group member knows about it and she doesn't. Back at the community center, Ben notices Haynes's car keeping watch on runners. All the runners enter inside the community center. Ben quickly goes inside the center and informs the team that the police are watching the building. Haynes approaches the center, and when she goes inside, she finds Myrna and the team lessening the kids from drugs and their long-term effects. Haynes is still skeptical, but she cannot do anything, as she doesn't have solid proof. Shortly, Greg and Gabby walk in, where she shows her emotional distress for not involving in the business. She believes in them as a family, but still, they keep her out of the loop. She is mad at them because she has been using drugs since 12 and knows everything about drugs, from quality to pricing. The group agrees to take her in onward, if they again have to sell drugs. Finally, everything is cool between them. The following day, Greg and Gabby visit Spencer, where Gabby tells Spencer to unfreeze the account and make payment. Later, Frank gives Claire's credit card to Myrna and she smartly exchanges the card. As the plan is executed perfectly, poor Claire doesn't know anything and soon will be thrown out from BJC. Following that, Myrna suspends Claire for misusing BJC's credit card. At the prison, Haynes meets with Christian and offers him a deal where he needs to help her to get the dean, and in return, she will help him to get out of the prison, and also threatens him saying, "Inmates don't like snitch." Ben and Ronnie are called by Dean and asks them to sell 10 kilograms of cocaine. They deny selling drugs, however, Dean threatens to kill them if they don't do it. Shortly, all the team members are present at the community center. They don't want to sell drugs anymore. So Ronnie comes up with the plan to kill Dean, but Frank opens his mouth and says, "Anyone heard of the brass bunkum?" In the final part, we see all the team members are caught by the Haynes and are brought for interrogations. Then we are cut 72 hours back. Just after Ben and Ronnie get the keys to their dream restaurants, Dean kidnaps Ben and Ronnie and asks them about a guy from America. To save Ben from Dean, Ronnie agrees to tell Dean about this American guy. Dean doesn't want to share his drug market share with this American guy. The American guy is Frank. Remember, in the last part he came out with an idea of a brass bunkum hack. Before Frank becomes an American guy, he buys a gun and hides it in his granddaughter's play box. The team is ready to reopen the Faircrest Hill Community Center. Diane is briefing the team before the opening. She strongly orders them not to do anything amusing. In the meantime, Haynes arrives there and meets with Diane. She asks Diane to keep her eyes on the outlaws, as she believes they are selling the drugs illegally. After that, Haynes goes to meet Christian at the prison. Christian informs her that something big is going down that will eventually nail the dean to the wall. And when Haynes asks, what is going down? Christian asks guarantee of his freedom in writing. Haynes is hesitant but promises to do her best. Later that night, Margie discovers the gun in her daughter's play box, and asks about it with Frank. Frank has the limited option, so he tells her everything from how he was forced to sell the drugs by Dean, to his plan including the plan Brass Bunkum, and his plan to sniff off to Brazil. Margie is speechless and just walks away without saying a word. According to the plan, Gabby packs the drugs into a smaller package, while Ronnie and Ben travel to London to meet with the Dean for the meeting with an American in a hotel. When Dean enters, Frank introduces himself as Ralphie, from New York. Though Dean is suspect at the beginning, but later starts to fall into their traps, thanks to Frank for his excellent roleplay for the character. Greg informs Dean that the goal is to sneak cocaine into Halloran's product, brake pads. They will not be suspected because they are a respectable family company. Frank asks Dean to visit Bristol by tomorrow to secure the deal, and also successfully cut out Ben and Ronnie from the deal. Meanwhile, Myrna and John sneak into his father's factory, Halloran Warehouse, and take the truck with them to execute the plan. The following day is Judgment Day, and also the Outlaws' last shot at Atonement, and also the day to meet with Dean. So Frank pretends to be weak and Diane allows him to rest. At the prison, Haynes is back with the agreement where for the information of Dean, Christian will be early released and immunity from further charges. Christian takes her deal and tells her that a deal is likely to take place at the Lake Park Hotel at 2 p.m. She quickly looks at her watch. The clock is ticking. She only has half an hour left. She quickly leaves from there along with her partner. Shortly, Frank manages himself out of the room, and takes a BMX bike ride from the kid to reach the hotel. Before hopping into the hotel, Haynes makes the call to Diane and learns that all the offenders are in her sight. Meanwhile, Haynes and her partner notice a Dean car entering the hotel. Frank meets Dean at the parking and instructs him to take the opposite exit as there is a slight change in plan, and probably take him to the community center. At the center, Gabby and Myrna are stationed at the charity car wash, while John and Greg are supposed to meet Dean and Frank in the parking. Ronnie and Ben are on the lookout to ensure that the phony deal is not disrupted. Gabby then spills vegetable soup into VIP Posh, and takes Diane to show it and locks her inside it. But their problem increases, and John panics and locks himself inside the washroom. Frank and Myrna desperately search for John. Thankfully Myrna finds John in the washroom. He is numb and doubts his ability to complete the task. Myrna motivates and encourages him. She adds, she has never seen him showing his weakness and seeking help after his father throws him away from the job. And like always, Myrna's plans work out. Dean is about to leave and in the meantime, John and Frank show up there and take Dean to the van containing drugs. And guess what? It is the same drugs that Dean gave to Ben and Ronnie to sell it. Both of them reach an agreement, where Dean gives £400,000 for the drugs. Ben and Ronnie intervene with the gun pointing at them and takes the money and run away. As per the plan, Frank pretends to call off the deal but Dean threatens them to deliver him the drug to London. Gabby washes the Dean's cars. Shortly as Dean is on the way to London, Haynes and the police pull over Dean, and find a car trunk full of drugs and Dean is under arrest. In the meantime, at the community center, Myrna is called up on the stage by the mayor for the key handover. This is the right time to correct her mistake and calls Claire on the stage, and gives her the keys, then she announces her retirement. At the present, Ronnie is being interrogated by Haynes, and where Haynes wonders how she out of nowhere manages to catch Dean with 10 kilograms of cocaine. Then we see what had happened behind. Ronnie and Ben had taken the bag containing drugs instead of money from Halloran's van, and the team put all that drugs in a bucket. And when Gabby stops Dean's car for charity wash, Myrna put 10 kilograms of cocaine into his car. After questioning by Haynes, all the outlaws are free. The outlaws are clean from laws and are no longer coerced to sell the drugs. They have the deal's money along with them. John finally opens up with his wife and tells her the truth. She is not angry at him at all. She supports him. Frank goes to his daughter. She is not happy seeing him there and asks him to leave immediately. She says that it is in his nature to cause harm to others, and she won't allow her children to go through what she went through. Frank doesn't want to leave but for her happiness, he leaves by informing the kids that he decides to leave, not Margie forcing him to leave. Tom is not happy seeing Frank abandoning them. At the prison, Christian is freed, and Ronnie gives him his cut and the drug line. Both of them depart their ways. Shortly, he throws the mobile and decides to stay away from the drug line. With help from John's wife, finally, they are suing his father for wrongful dismissal, breach of contract, and workplace bullying. Diane is finally promoted to police community support officer, while Haynes cheers her from the crowd. Greg asked promotion but he is denied. He quit the job and also goes and Marie for a date. Gabby decides to stay clean and chooses to go rehab meeting in the community center. Ben and Ronnie catch the train to Weston. Ronnie then heads to bring some snacks for the way, but suddenly has a glimpse of her life ahead. It frightens her and exits the train. She stands outside the train near Ben's windows, who is drawing the logo for their restaurant. He sees her standing outside. He is perplexed at first, but soon realizes Ronnie's love for the criminal world. Both of them are heading in opposite directions. The train moves. Ronnie then heads outside station in thrill and steals Ferrari. She doesn't fear anymore to do wrongful deeds. It clearly shows she is now into new embark in the underworld.